After calling cancel the search party now, who showed up?
Yeah.
Call up the
Call out the dogs, send the highway patrol back, National Guard.
We got a patient out of something.
No, we haven't called.
We haven't called order yet.
I told Mike to do it, but he wouldn't. Let's do that. We call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have the agenda before you. Any additions to the agenda?
I'd like to, somewhere along here in the line, add a couple of things that I'd like to discuss with the council about.
Under new business, fine, we've got nothing there.
Whatever, that's fine.
Okay, with that addition to the agenda, discussion from Greg, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So to approve. Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Chad, thank you. I can't see. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Consent agenda, we have a copy of that, minutes, claims. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So second.
Motion by Chad, seconded by John. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion again, roll call vote. Billy?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Brock? Aye. Chad?
Aye.
Are there any visitors to be heard that are not on the agenda for this evening? All right, makes that part easy. Reports. First off, Lennox ambulance. Mr. Allen.
All right, General, tonight. Amanda asked me to put together a quick little synopsis of 2017. So what we've got, 2017 and 2016, just as a recap, we did 350 calls. 2017, we actually did 322. We're down about 28. A couple different factors leading to that. We had a couple of our, what I call regular patients had passed away. So that's part of the reason that we're down. But like I said, we did 322 calls. On staff right now, we have 14 EMTs. We have 2 nurses. We have 2 AEMTs, of which one of them will be a paramedic within the next 2 weeks. 7 paramedics, including myself. We also have 7 CPR instructors on staff. So we can take care of that pretty easily as well. Our average response time for 2017 was 6.4 minutes, which is far into the industry standards of 10 minutes for a rural service. In 2017, we did an EMT class that had 11 individuals, of which 7 have taken their test and have passed. The other 4, for different reasons, have either not taken or have not passed their test. So, pretty good response from that. We did get 1 regular onto our staff from that too, so that's a good deal. 2017, our fundraiser, we brought in a little over $13,000. We spent about $8,000 of that. Repairing and maintaining our cots. We had to replace some batteries and some pistons on those. We put striping in the back of 9L. 9B, thankfully with you guys, we replaced last year and put the striping on when it was replaced. In 2017, actually the end of 2016, prior to that, we'd always had monthly training paid for through a grant. In South Dakota was the only grant in the United States, only state in the United States that was using that grant for that money, and they pulled that. So beginning in 2017, we now have to pay for our training every month. So we've been doing that. Also doing the same for 2018 through District 2. We've also purchased...
What is that? I'm sorry, what is that one?
What is it? It runs $1,500 a year. So they come out and do an hour and a half to 2 hour training every month, along with their meetings. So We also purchased and installed a washer and dryer in our quarters there, just for the fact that we go on some of these calls. We've got C. diff, we've got MRSA, we've got different things that we don't want to take home to our families. So we can wash that right there in house. We also had to replace the portable suction, and our sign that's out on the southeast corner of the station, we had to replace this outside of it. All the red lettering was peeling off, but figure that building is almost 20 years old. So we're getting to the point where some of that maintenance and stuff on the building needs to be taking place. So that's where $8,000 of our money went from last year. We did have our fundraiser here last weekend. To this point, we're up almost 9,500 this year. And we expect quite a few more letters to be coming in as well. Other good thing that's happened is we received a very generous estate donation from the Rosella Oldman's estate, which that partnered with a grant from the South Dakota Municipal League, has purchased our first auto load. So that's going to be a really nice addition to our staff. We also are in the process of trying to raise the money for the other one. Right now we're about halfway to the second one. So you have those pictures, Amanda? And it's got a couple pictures and a short little video if you can play it, just kind of showing what it does. Basically, if we can get these, we're saving some backs in the process. So our cots right now will lift 750 pounds. These auto loads will lift 700 pounds and load the cots for us. So we're not having to break our backs lifting those patients. So they're a pretty neat piece of equipment. The grant from the South Dakota Municipal League brought about $8,000 towards that total. So that takes a big chunk off of them. This kind of just shows how it works a little bit. They're not lifting at all when they do that. That's all done by hydraulics.
I was going to ask, you don't have to hold the end.
All we do is push a button. They're amazing pieces of equipment. When I worked out at Rosebud, we had 2 of them, and they're wonderful. Hurley's got one. I believe I heard Parker now has one. They're becoming more and more standards in the industry. What was that?
Is there a lot of maintenance to them?
They're the annual maintenance, but the biggest thing with them is that track that goes in the back of the ambulance. You keep the gravel out of that. That's what we've been told over and over again. So you just take a shot back and make sure the gravel stays out of it, and that's very well the only maintenance there is.
So you get a little gravel off of the wheels with it,
Yeah.
when you wheel up to the back of the ambulance.
You'd be amazed what our rigs look like after we do a call in this kind of weather out here. It looks like a mud pit in the back. And much of stuff we track in and out. So, but yeah, so that's our dream. We've got one on order. I'm hoping by the end of March, hopefully that first one will be in. We're gonna put that into the rig that you guys just chassis for us last year, and then our second one will go into 9L. So hopefully, if everything would pan out and we'd have a good year, maybe we could get it done by the end of the year. So, what challenges do I see in 2018? As always, personnel. In our industry, volunteers, and even on-call pay, they're hard to find. It's just, there's not people doing this stuff anymore. Like I said, we just added 1 paramedic to our staff. For our daytime staff has really filled out our daytime schedule very nicely. Our nights and weekends, we're getting a lot closer to where we need to be. We're still not there yet. So, we're also having extreme drug shortages right now. Anybody who's in the medical industry knows that the drug shortages on our, the stuff we use day in and day out are huge. Epi, D50, sodium bicarb, EpiPens, all that stuff has gone up in price drastically because of the shortages. Also, like our fluids we give the patients are saline. There's huge shortages on saline right now. When I started January of last year, I was paying 98 cents for a liter of fluid, and it's up over $6 now.
Did a lot of stuff come from Puerto Rico?
Supposedly. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, I think that.
However, the shortage was in existence before the hurricanes happened. We've had a shortage for about 1.5 years now. So, but they're blaming a lot of it on the hurricanes in Puerto Rico. But we're over $6 a liter now for what we were paying 98 cents last January. And then the last thing that we see for a big challenge is reimbursements. We've seen this for the last couple of years, and with the ACA Act still in play, we're getting tighter and tighter with the reimbursements for. One example I've used quite often is if we go on a call for an allergic reaction, and the patient happens to be a Medicaid patient, the EpiPen itself is $480 some. That doesn't include my IV setups, that doesn't include my, diesel wear and tear in the vehicle, any personnel. We can only get paid $186. And there's no way around that. Absolutely no way we can get around that. It's just the way the market is and the way the reimbursement structure is at this point. So, we do the best we can without going that route, but you're saving a life at that point, because anaphylactic reactions are nothing to mess around with. So, the one other cool thing we're doing is Brock and I worked on something at the beginning of the year, and Lennox is piloting a HOSA EMT program. So they're offering it through the internet, and they're doing their practicals and their hands-on experience at Lennox Ambulance for the South. So that's just kind of getting going right now. We have our first meeting where they're doing hands-on stuff this Wednesday night. So it's kind of a cool aspect, getting them interested in high school, and hopefully help us out, but also help them get into the medical field in the future as well. So,
Good.
that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Keep up the good work.
We have our meeting and our training every third Monday night of the month. So if you guys ever want to stop in, you're more than welcome to stop in for a meeting or a training and see the crew that I work with. I'm very proud of our crew we have. This year's been a tough year. We've had a lot of calls that have been really brutal. So I'm very proud of the crew I've got on hand. So, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it very greatly.
All right. Thank you, Ellen. Public Works report. Jeremy.
On the water side of things, we're waiting on well samples from the water structure as far as the city well sales going. The total coliform / E. coli, vaccine, whatever you want to call it, had passed. We had those initially done, but we're waiting for the rest of the makeup from time well for those samples to take place. And for South Lincoln to approve those, and that should be the last thing we are waiting for as far as that goes. This summer, at some point during this whole process, the VFD in well B took a lightning strike and did a quote from Thompson Electric, and Donna, I got that very
Yeah,
late
I got
in
it,
the day.
yeah.
So we're in the process, we still currently own them on fixing that, or what we're gonna do with that. And then I've got a question for you gentlemen on the generator at the water plant. I've kind of brought it up on the side to some people. Do you guys have any idea of what we want to do with that thing?
I think from discussions you and I had, the fire department is good, the ambulance, you guys have one, the nursing home has one. So there are places in town that have them. If we were to have some sort of natural disaster where we needed a place where we had power to keep things going. Senior center.
And I think it might be a little overkill for that,
It might
you
be.
know,
I don't know, did you find out what it's worth, I guess would be the
and
question.
I'm trying.
Okay,
And it's not the easiest thing to do. We've got to call into Cummins and South Lincoln, obviously they're interested in on it. I don't know if they have a number on it or not.
okay.
But I guess the first step is if you guys are entertaining the fact that we're not gonna need this thing, we either sell it or use it, and you guys make those
And
decisions.
the schools have them too now, so, I mean, that was,
Yeah.
for what we have left, either the police station, which really doesn't have a lot of space, you know, if we needed something, or the senior center were the two thoughts that come to my mind as far as larger footprints. You know, if we had to get people inside, we couldn't get them out of town for whatever reason.
I do know there would be, to take it out of the plant, relocate the switch gear, it's not as quite as simple as having it moved and placed, and there's gonna be, I'll say thousands involved in moving it, so we have to consider that too. So what I'm looking for is pursue a price and find out what it's worth and figure out who's gonna give us the best price for this thing. That will be it.
think that's what we kind of talked about last time.
Yeah.
There wasn't a need for it here,
Okay.
or the school didn't need it, or.
There's not an obvious need, so we might as well try and get something out of it.
Okay, I'll get some quotes and get them to Donna and then put them in front of you guys and see if we can't find somebody. Maybe it's South Lincoln, I know they wanted the numbers by last Tuesday, and, that's not the easiest thing to do already. Routine testing on the water side and service calls, continues. Quite a few frozen water meters, this year, a lot of trailer houses, we put in quite a bit of time dealing with those. Tomorrow is shut-off day on the wastewater side. I'm in the process right now of creating SOPs for, some of you may know, when we get a storm, there's a lot of preparing for the storm and the rush of water. There's never been anything in place that I know of when I took over. What do we exactly do? I think it's a good reference for me to look at back in the records. Where do I have this gate at? What do I do when our flows are this and we got a potential of 1.5 inches of rain? I want to have that all written down, step-by-step procedure, so I fall off a bridge or whatever, it's still there. It's a good reference for anybody from the city to be able to view. What I'm also doing that for too is the filamentous bacteria situation. I want to get into more of a routine. I don't want to overdo it anytime you're adding chlorine or something into your treatment plant. It's not a good thing. But from what I see from the filamentous, for how many times it does affect us per year, we're almost going to have to be proactive with it and kind of, whether it's once, twice a month, add so many pounds. I'm figuring that out, and again, a step-by-step procedure that's shared on the city drive. Here's what you need to do. With that being said, we're still well within, permits and whatever else. It's just, we've learned a couple things in the last couple years on how to run that one, or how to run that plant effectively. There is some darker effluent coming from it, almost like a carryover. I'm kind of saying it's probably from the kind of temperature extremes right now, going to really cold, kind of days like today where it gets up around 40. Just like human beings, we kind of are on that roller coaster too, but on the microbiology side of things, the bugs get a little confused and sometimes carry over. Again, we're well within permit. I spent the day up there testing to make sure that the ammonia is creeping up a little bit, but I have my standards, which are half of what I'm allowed. So being proactive instead of reactive when we get to our limits before, and tomorrow or Wednesday would be our weekly sampling. There's a lot of sampling we can do in-house, so we can make some changes if possible. Sometimes it's not possible. So we can be making changes at the plant to prevent the violation. I'm also reviewing the permit in more detail. We just got a new permit, and I'm going to start beating you over the head with it. It may be in the next 5 years, it might be in the next 10 years, but phosphorus removal is going to become a big deal. Hopefully not for the city of Lennox. We have some equipment that allows us to test for it. The difficult part of this is most of this gets decided on the national level. Not to bring politics into it, Trump would love to get rid of the EPA tomorrow and make my life certainly a lot easier to run that plant. So I'm kind of looking at other communities that have had phosphorus removal put on them already and the lengths that they've had to go to with detention time, things like that. And it's not pretty. And the quickest I see it coming is 5 to 10 years. That's the best I can do right now. It'll be my job to follow this situation closely and to keep you updated on it. But I want to see where our limits, obviously we're in an agricultural community, where we're at and get some consistent test results. Start working with the DNR saying, here's where we're at, what do you think is going to be put down on us, what do we need to plan for, in 5 to 10 years.
So they're coming with new restrictions then, is that what you're saying? Or that's the rumor, I don't want to say rumor.
And it's in our current permit now to start monitoring for it. And the DNR's MO, which is again the EPA telling them what they want, if you're gonna start monitoring it for, you know, or monitoring it quarterly or something like that, they have a bigger plan there. They just want to figure out where you're at. So if we're coming through sky high in phosphorus right now, we need to start planning.
So what do? Modify the SBR then, or how does that work? Or is the SBR supposed to take care of all this? Or?
It can, but it's gonna require, depending on the levels, again, we don't know, it can require more detention time is the biggest thing. So we have to hold water longer, which again gets to an I&I issue. So most communities that get strict limits put on them end up usually doubling the size of the wastewater plant, which is not what we want. But they also get very good funding packages, which is another thing to watch in Washington as far as, we'd like to think it all takes place close to here, but all the funding comes from the federal. Lewis and Clark is funding that out right now. Doesn't matter really if it's Republican or Democrat in office, they seem to, you know, fare the same, and when it comes down to regulation, Trump's a whole different deal, but there's stuff to pay attention to if you want to stay ahead of the game, so I'm going to try to do that the best that I can and update you along the line. Basins 1 and 2 that I go to bed every single night and worry about as far as the diffuser system. I'm trying to develop a plan, even with higher flow, when can we jump in there and attack these things and get that fixed, so it is a work in progress. I wanted to do it during lower flow times, and there's been a multitude of reasons why that can't happen, so I'm coming up with a plan there. I'm hoping in June to go after basin number 2 is where I'm at with this. And routine testing and sampling continues. Again, we're well within compliance. Any questions for me?
Sounds good, thank you, Jeremy. David?
My report's a little shorter than Jeremy's. Now that the temperature's warmed up, our catch basins and gutters full of snow and stuff, I guess the best I can say is maybe call the office and we'll work on those as soon as we can. The signs for Countryside Avenue that came in, those will be installed shortly. The speed sign on Main Street, something happened in the mail, and that's not back yet. Same as last month.
How's snow removal been?
I'm ready for
Or what's the biggest issue with the snow removal? And maybe I should ask you that question.
timing. I mean, Friday, right, Amanda? We had a plan, we thought we had a plan. It's kind of good we didn't have to use that plan, we only got a couple inches and not several. It's not as easy, I mean, it's easy, it's easy to do a snow alert, but you can hope to be right 50% of the time.
Well, to add to that, we weren't the only ones that were throwing snow alerts out there. That didn't need it.
On a weekend, it makes it worse, everybody's off work. It turned out good, okay.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
Any questions of Dave? Thank you, guys. City Administrator.
Thank you. Just an update on the Christensen sump pump. At the last meeting, we were going to get together and formulate a plan and then bring that back. And our schedules, we just haven't been able to coordinate meetings. So we're looking at that the first week of March to get together with Janelle and Trent, and then we'll report back hopefully at the next council meeting. This last week, I did submit a grant to the Wellmark Foundation to help in assisting with the city's share of the Highway 44 rec trail. That is estimated to be about $105,000, so I applied for just under $53,000. I will know if we have been awarded that grant in May. Cross your fingers. Kelly and I had a meeting last week just to talk about different ideas to have more of a presence in the newspaper, different story ideas in addition to the council meetings, so we'll work through those. And I have been looking at the snow removal ordinances pertaining to snow alerts as well as removing snow from sidewalks, driveways, etc. And if it's okay with the group, I'd like to propose a couple of changes, one of those being the sidewalks and the duration in which residents have to shovel. Currently it's 24 hours, and I'm getting a lot of feedback that people would prefer 48 hours, just based on that most of the residents work in Sioux Falls, and so sometimes 24 hours isn't enough time for them to get their sidewalk shoveled. So I thought I'd look through that. There are also a couple other updates that should be made as far as days that they have to pay a ticket and possibly cost if you wanted to look at that. But I thought we could review and just see if there are any changes we can make. Other than that, the other two items I have to discuss are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the reports? Motion by Mike, second by Billy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We're going to old business, the Boynton Avenue maintenance agreement.
As we discussed at the last council meeting, the council is in favor of taking over maintenance and ownership of that stretch of West Boynton. And since it wasn't an agenda item last time, if you would want to take action on that agreement, you could do so at this time. Brett recommends that you just make a motion and then we end it at that point. He doesn't feel any sort of legal action is necessary.
Have you talked to anyone from the township to see what their exact feelings are?
I've talked to Ed, and he's in favor of it. All he requested is that I sent him a letter stating what was discussed and the action that was taken.
Any other comments?
This would be the city taking over the whole, this is what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Do you know if the water that sits there, because I know it's low-lying ground, pools to the north and runs into our property?
I think David would know.
Yes.
Water pools on the north side of Boynton.
Yep.
Comes back, city said.
I mentioned that to Amanda a few weeks back that we might start putting in some culverts or something.
Like, the culvert is fairly new. The drainage is poor. I guess meanders to the south and what, along the railroad tracks?
I suppose.
Meanders across Cooper's there, and Wayne has wanted to take that ditch out so that you can get water on him.
in the spring, I know it can be a problem. Heavy rain as well.
Yeah, it comes down through Quakers, and along that row of trees in there. That ought to be dealt with sometime too.
I know we've been, seems like forever talking about this, trying to come up with a solution, and we haven't gotten a lot of, if I remember correctly, the township came to us first, seeking, right, a joint use agreement on this thing, getting us to pay for part of the gravel or whatever the case was, and then there was rumors floating around about a document which we've never seen, to my knowledge, but the city has ownership. I guess I kind of keep going back to, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily opposed to it, but I keep going back to, I think, Bill, you had a conversation with the state's attorney, right?
Yes.
And there's-
Basically, in a nutshell, he said if an agreement could not be reached, it goes in front of the commission, and they make, yes, and they make a decision.
If we were to adopt that or take over that road, are we entitled to the tax, the property tax responses? Yeah, to the north half of the road, that abuts the north half of the road. That was one of the reasons I heard originally that they didn't want us to have that road, because they wanted that tax revenue.
I did read there was a statement, I believe in their minutes, that they don't receive any tax revenue from that stretch of Boynton.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Where would that build them? Where would it build them?
The letting landowners should be paying taxes to the center of the road.
Right, so I don't understand that, or at least from the residents on the north side, they should receive something.
Maybe we have a few more unanswered questions.
Sounds like it.
Well, my concern with it is, okay, we just rushed to a decision here to take this over to end it, to check this off the list, and all of a sudden, who's stuck dealing with a big drainage problem?
Suddenly we are.
At the end of the day, that's probably gonna be our problem anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's coming into town, we're gonna have to deal with it sooner rather than later. But I'm with you. I'm all for taking this thing over,
2 years
if
ago.
that's what they want, and then end the battle, but I don't wanna get stuck for a whole bunch of dollars that we're not planning on either.
That's what you're looking at. Something's gonna happen, and they're gonna demand that it will be taken care of, fixed the way it's supposed to be fixed, and we're gonna foot the bill, and I don't think the taxpayers in town are gonna be happy about it.
if we take it over, we could maintain that as truck route then also, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So you wanna maintain it as a truck route, and keep having the trucks over it, make it the mess it is, so we're constantly gonna be out there.
Yeah, I think if we
Well,
take,
I'm not saying that, very good, I'm just saying that that's an option, we would be within our right, and there isn't much they could say about it,
no,
like they're complaining now.
there's really nothing, if we're gonna maintain truck route there and maintain the drainage there, that road just basically has to be regraded and get it to, up to a standard, because it's so wet, it mashes the gravel in the ground. The only thing we haven't tried, they have in the one spot, was they put a bunch of oversized stuff in there. That holds up pretty good, yeah.
And there again, Mike, to do that, we're talking,
Yeah. You're gonna have to cut the shoulders off, they clean the ditches out. Dave and I met with him 3 years ago trying to do that, and of course, township wants no part of that, because that's at an expense that they don't want to incur.
well, there's only two options that I feel that we have, that it's either we, without a document stating otherwise, right? It's either we're ending up taking it over, or we leave it to the county commission to decide how that's gonna be split, right? Is there another option that I don't?
You're right. Kind of in the worst case, it goes to the county commission.
Yeah.
We want to
Right.
do that anyhow.
Right, and the county commission could say, well, Because common sense says it should be halvesies, but the county commission then decides whether it's all of Lennox's jurisdiction.
That may be a question we need to have the county decide on the tax rule, on who gets the taxes from the property abutting that. That line that's drawn, that they keep referring to on the map that runs to the north side of the ditch,
Right.
that is probably been penciled in there by somebody that didn't know what they were doing. And it might have been that way deliberately to change your tax
For
rule.
that, Amanda, that's not an official line, there's a disclaimer right on there anyhow.
If you stand on the pins that are supposed to be in the center of the road, you stand on Elm and Boynton and look towards the west, you will look directly along the north side of that road. If you go to Cleveland and Boynton and stand on that pin, it's in the middle, and you will look to the east, directly down the middle of the road. So when Dave and I did that, and the conversations we had, it just appears that the road was built, shifted, not exactly centered on the line.
Over the years of the road degrading, it's probably squashed it out of position, so to speak.
Do you think in years to come that that road's gonna need a bunch of work, Dave? If we keep it as a truck route?
Yes. But when that time comes, if anything's developed out there,
I think you'd be better served by, if we took it over, by not making it a truck route and get it to stand up for a few more years until we get some development out there, until the city could then build a better road, bring sewer in from the west, which is badly needed out there if development happens. Because that sewer at the, just west of the Begemans is almost out of the ground. It's really shallow.
I would say it would stay like it is for the time being until something happens out there, and then it'll be storm sewer. There is no water and sewer now.
Right.
And right now, as far as the gravel part of it is concerned, we share with them, or they hit it every so often? Or it's 50/50, or?
Yeah, right now, the agreement we've had in the past is
It's
we
ours,
share.
huh? I mean, they hardly ever get
Yeah,
it.
they won't do anything for the dust control that we do every year.
I mean, as far as maintaining and graveling and rolling the gravel back and forth and trying to keep a decent bed.
No, and it's probably just as well that way. It doesn't make sense for those guys, or us either, to go from Elmsford, to go 300 feet or whatever it is to the
Yeah.
west and turn around there.
Yeah.
Just, it's,
Because you're taking the snow off of it, right? Well, then that's, I mean, then I would say we let it go to the county commission and they figure out what they want to do with it. And if they give it all to us, then that's what it is, right? And if they halvesies it, then that's what it is. That's, I mean, that's going to be overall better for us anyway, but I just don't know which way they're going to, I don't know how they're going to handle a line you share a township road with a city limit.
What would you folks like to do? Shall I make that motion?
I agree with Brock. I say we put it on their lap. What happens?
I mean, the worst case scenario for us then is we own the whole thing. Then the county tells us, instead of just volunteering us to do that, the county can decide what they want to do.
Possibly we could come out better, possibly we end up where we're at
Right.
by taking it over.
Right.
We've had negotiations, can we now make a motion to go to that we're gonna let the county arbitrate the decision? Or do we have to enter into more discussions and tell it, make the county aware that we can't come to an agreement? Do you have any idea?
Well, the township has basically washed their hands of it, saying that it's our responsibility. So I think we should probably pursue the commissioners and see their take on it.
Yeah, I motion pursue the commissioners.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Billy, a second by Brock to pursue the county commissioner's decision on West Point. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote. Greg?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Brock? Aye. Chad?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is North Juniper Street Purchase Agreement.
At the last council meeting, we reviewed a section of a purchase agreement between the LADC and a developer for the North Juniper right-of-way. And you had decided that, not knowing the development corporation's take on it, just to table that item. And I had a discussion with the group at their last meeting, and it is the understanding that in the initial negotiations with the LADC and that developer, that the LADC would pay for the initial cost to construct that road. And so with that information, I don't feel that the city needs to be involved in that purchase agreement. If they made that agreement to begin with, then the purchase agreement can be worded in a manner that the LADC is responsible for the initial construction of the street bordering those two properties, and/or they can sell that to a developer, and the developer can then develop the street. So those two properties there bordering Juniper and Boynton will not be assessed for the initial cost of the street. So I have since contacted the developer and given them that information and asked them to have their attorney update that document and then present it to the LADC for their approval, and the city is not involved.
We want to make, I think part of it too is we want to make sure on future assessments wasn't there some confusion that they were trying to throw in any future assessments on the city's behalf be waived as well.
Right, and I explained that to the developer, and I think he may have been confused and/or hadn't fully reviewed the document. He didn't think it said that, but in everyone's interpretation, that's how we read it. So I asked him to have his attorney review that and make those changes.
So the development corporation is gonna fund the street improvements and stuff there?
That's the agreement that was made.
And they're using the citizens' tax dollars that we gave them to develop Lennox and not to pay for people's streets, is that correct?
Well, you give them a donation, and then they are working on projects, building houses, and there might possibly be some profit in the sale of those houses. So in a sense, yes, it is taxpayer dollars, but they could finance that through other options, like a revolving loan fund or a loan from the bank. So to say that it would fully be taxpayer dollars, I don't know if that would be accurate at this time. That organization would have to decide how they're going to pay to construct that street.
Which is essentially, this would be no different than what they did in their Meadows edition.
Correct.
They use their funds to construct that.
How much of this money of their funds did they raise that the city did not give to them, that the people are giving the city that's going into their fund?
That would be a question for the board.
It's a good question, but we don't, I'll have to be asked at their next meeting. If you can query them as to that line.
Sure.
Okay. We don't have to take any action in on that one.
So at this point, I'm considering this topic done.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, new business. Greg, you had a couple items for discussion?
Yeah, last week I was reading the newspaper. Councilman Rops said that the city mismanaged for $3.9 billion. I'd like to know how you come about that.
What do you want to start with, the most recent?
Tell me how the city mismanaged $3.9 million.
Okay. Trail on Highway 17, we had a grant that we had secured for $270,000. And because somebody from the city didn't go to a meeting, we didn't get those funds, but had the grant. So there's $270,000. It doesn't matter, I don't care who's to blame. It doesn't matter to me, because it's over. But a city employee didn't go to that meeting to get that $270,000. So the taxpayers had to flip half of that Highway 17 bike trail. There's $270,000. I don't need to get into the specifics of the eminent domain deal with over $700,000. So now we're up to close to $1 million. So there's $1 million. Wastewater treatment facility construction. 39% over contingency, bid at $3.2 million, completed at $4.5 million. Change order after change order after change order, which I guess I understand to a degree that you have to okay. But just the building of an SVR plant in our cold weather environment, whether the city administrator at the time sold you a bag of goods or whatever, doesn't matter. If we pay 10% contingency on that versus the 39% contingency, that's about $1.2 million less. Water towers. Lennox had a 50,000 gallon water tower. It needed to come down. It was built in 1912. That 50,000 gallons supported 1,000 people. It couldn't support 2,000. And in 2003, under the recommendation of your water superintendent at the time, and your engineers, which I totally agree with, there was a water shortage. Lennox had a problem. Nobody's doubting that. The minutes reflect drastic drought, drastic water shortages. In a community of 2,000 people, 1,000 taxpayers, one 500,000 gallon water tower is sufficient to cover that and fire coverage. In fact, a 500,000 gallon water tower, in my estimates, would support a community of over 5,000 people. When you get to 5,000 people, then we need to construct another water tower. In the minutes, it talks about digging 2 wells. You ended up digging 3 wells. And not even 2 years after those were completed, you had all sorts of issues with those wells. So you're looking at about $850,000 for a water tower, $100,000 in looping those lines, $15,000 in land acquisition, $75,000 in engineering fees, and $85,000 for a 3rd well. And I don't think I quoted 3.9, I meant to say 3.5, but it is close to, it's like $3.5 million. Plus we're throwing, I don't know how much money are we throwing into that wastewater treatment facility.
A lot.
I mean, it's just, and again, I'm just stating a fact that the conversation just has to be had. Because when we move forward, and to say Lennox doesn't have any money, like there's a reason for that, and those excuses could be reasonable or whatever the case might be. But those are the facts that I've lined out. There's talks about grants for those water towers. There's talks about the wastewater treatment facility. In fact, I know we sent representation to Pier to say we cannot afford to build that wastewater treatment facility because we just redid the lagoons in 1996 or 1999, and now they're coming on top of saying you have to put a new wastewater treatment facility in. Again, you're listening to experts. The lawyers, experts in the eminent domain, give you a dollar amount of $200 and some thousand as a catastrophic amount, and it ends up failing. The fact that you listen to an administrator say this wastewater treatment facility is the best facility, if you do your research, it's not. The FBR plant's probably 5th or 6th best on your options. And it's unfortunate. I mean, that's just where we're at. But those are the things that I found just looking through the minutes. And that's just what they are. Unless there's some kind of a, and it's serious. I know we needed to have water. I get it. And I know we needed to go search for it. And we had to dig our own wells. And we needed more storage. Because we did have 90,000 gallons of storage in the ground and a 50,000 gallon storage in that old tower. But that, Hartford, to make a comparison, Hartford is now 3,200 people. Hartford put up a 400,000 gallon water tower. Like, why wouldn't they have gone with 1 million? Because it's just, we're just over our skis. Like, because 1,000 people have to pay for that. And so $340,000 a year has to go towards this loan that isn't going to mature until 2040 or 2037. It's just a long time.
So when you come to the thing with the water tower, the thing is to handle growth to the north and to handle growth to the south. If we wouldn't have had that water tower with that capacity, we would have never landed Wilson Trailer, because one of the things they requested is they gotta have water. They need to know that we can bring the water they need if they ever have a fire out there. If we wouldn't have replaced those 8-inch lines because we had 6-inch lines that were in the ground before, we had Sioux Falls Fire down here, we put almost 400,000 gallons of water on the fire across the street. They would have sucked the lines down. We'd had to have replaced those lines anyhow because they would have been damaged.
Yeah.
So you're gonna tell somebody like Wilson Trailer, oh, we don't want to put any water towers up because, you know, we don't want your measly 150, 200 jobs.
I didn't say not put up a water tower. You put up one 500,000 gallon water tower. That covers it all. Jackson, I've looked into all this. I've looked at fire coverage. I get the fire coverage. That's the big part. That's the big deal. I get it. I don't know why you needed one to the north. Why would we have to put that one in? I think, now look, come the year 2200, when Lennox is actually 10,000 people, people are going to look back and say, thank goodness we've got these 2 huge water towers. But that's such a long ways away. I just think we got over our skis. That's all. And I just look at other communities our size, and there is none. I mean, I had a buddy of mine driving the lake, never been here before. Looks at the 2 water towers, he's thinking, holy smoke, Lennox is bigger than I thought. And he gets into town, and he's like, oh, there's only 2,000 people here. I mean, we've got 1,000, basically 1,100 taxpayers, okay? And infrastructure is important. I get it. It drives the city from water to sewer. And we're still going to have these issues with the sewer. What you did on the water end of it was, I mean, in terms of underneath, and Jeremy and I have talked about this too, on the water side, we're pretty set. It's great. It's just the storage capacity. I mean, it's about $1.2, $1.4 million that we have to pay for this, that we don't really need it now. Are we going to need it later? I hope so. But Lennox is going to have to get to like 7,500 people.
That was a decision we made at that time because we were hoping Lennox was going to grow. And our crystal ball apparently was a little clouded, but we didn't have any feedback from anybody else. Where were you?
Where was I at?
Yeah, where were you then?
I wasn't Sioux Falls.
Okay.
I mean, you eventually fire. I'm getting into the minutes now of the specifics with the wastewater, okay? I'm in 2009, and eventually you fire Quenzer, or Quenzer eventually is gone.
Yep.
I don't know how that comes to pass, but I know, listen, from a council perspective, I know you're going to trust the experts. Who else are you going to trust? The experts. But I think it's wise for us to do our own research and spend some time looking at it. I don't know about that. I mean, the wastewater treatment facility, literally that stinks. But I understand we had to do it because, I mean, you're not going to tell the EPA no. I get that. But I just feel like if we're going to be that much over contingency, somebody besides the taxpayer should have to pay that penalty. And I would think it would have been Quinzer. Be like, you can't do this. And now the plant wasn't built to that. I don't build the plants, the experts do. But you look back, and I'm not trying, I know Monday morning quarterback, and I know hindsight's 20/20. I get it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying with the information we have and decisions we can make now, can we make better decisions, fiscally responsible, so that the community doesn't feel like hokey Pete. You know, and you're doing great things. I mean, we're doing great things, and I never did refer to they, and I never did refer to the council. It's we. I said we, and I mean we, because we're part of this deal now. And moving forward, people just have to understand, I don't want rumor mill. I want the facts on what we're trying to do moving forward, and sometimes the truth hurts. That's it. That's it. And I plan on living here until my kids are 50 years old, and I'm rooted in here, and I just want the best for the future, and that's what it is. Not throwing anybody under the bus, because like I say this all the time, we don't have a DeLorean, and we're not gonna hop back in it and go back in time. I get it. But moving forward, financially, this is where we're at. This is why we're here. Let's do the best moving forward. That's it.
And then the one more thing is, a couple of times I've heard councilmen refer to the city of Lennox as being bankrupt. And I guess, Tracy, you were on for how many years? You were chairman of that committee. Was the city ever close to bankrupt?
No, we're tight.
Yeah.
I think we're tight, and I think we can see through it, and we will get through this. I think what has been said here is about looking at the past, learning from it, learning how to move forward, is exactly the tone to take. I have a lot of confidence in the people that are sitting and looking at right now, and going forward, we're not bankrupt, we're not close, we're tight, because we overextended on this stuff, we were moving toward the future. Now, this next couple of years, we have to regroup and put it in, and maybe a project or two that we can't go to until we get our funding back under us. But as for the city's day-to-day operations, they will still continue, I think. I've heard nothing about different from that. I don't think we're in a big financial difficulty. It's just tight.
When you were on, there was always, from tax time, there was funds to meet the obligations that we needed, correct?
Correct. And this isn't the first time I've heard we've been bankrupt. It runs through there, and it will come again, and it will be, this isn't the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, and I never referred to it. I didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything.
I know. But anyway, I think to Donna's point, okay, the fact that if we spend $500,000 more than we bring in, and we do that a number of years in a row, we're going to go bankrupt. And the fact that we maybe did, I mean, referring to South Main Street, in terms of, we would have to look at priority, that probably should have waited, and Central Basin 2 probably should have been done, and it wasn't, and again, it's over, and South Main, it looks great, it's fantastic. But, I mean, we probably extended too far, and that's, you know, when you got a go-getter and we don't have any oversight, and he starts planning these things out, you know, at the end of the day, what we did with Main Street is great. From a priority standpoint, should have maybe waited, probably, because we know we've got some issues now with Central Basin 2, and that's going to have to be our focus.
So,
Good. Okay, under personnel payroll.
Oh, I'm up.
You're up.
I'm up, okay. While we're talking about money, I've been tossing around the idea, everything's been tight, we all know that, we all went through the budget, poured over things, took a look, made some hard decisions. It's something that's kind of been in my mind for the past month or so. I'm not looking for an answer tonight. I kind of feel like leading by example sometimes is the right way to go. Having said that, I know not all that long ago the council, you probably have to, Mayor, you were on, correct me when it was. Was it a year ago? 2 years ago maybe? Yeah, we took I think council pay was $2,400 a year. We bumped it to 36. You know, is it something we need to look at and backing that off? I know it's not a lot of money in the scope of things, but does it help in some other areas? I just want to throw it out there for discussion. Anybody has any thoughts? Or not?
I would say that would be a discussion for the new council. You know, I could vote tonight to give them, cut it to 0, because I'm not gonna be here.
Right. I understand, I wasn't looking for a decision tonight. I'm kind of hitting everybody across the face with this right now, right? So, just an item for discussion.
I'm in favor of it.
Same.
It's good discussion, Chad and I talked about it, and he said, when is a good time to do that? And I said, you can bring this discussion forward at any time. You're only going to seat one new member on the council, and I know that he isn't here for the money, for the pay. He's here to do what he can to help the council. Like, I hope I'm not speaking under him. Well, he's here to do what he can to help the city. So if you want to delay it and do it at the meeting in May or June, that's completely your decision. If you feel comfortable with doing it now and leading by example, which I think is an excellent idea, but it's easy for me to say it around here.
Why wasn't this done when we were discussing wages and stuff?
I didn't honestly think about it then. I had a thought afterwards, that's why it's being discussed now.
Any more comments?
I think to be fair, we probably should wait until the new council is seated, as Mr. Gregg stated. However, I would have no problem being in favor of it starting right now, so if somebody cared to make that motion, I'd be okay with that.
We can wait, and I'm not saying it's the right thing or wrong thing to do, I just want to throw it out there for discussion. This doesn't have to be a 5-minute decision where we...
No, I really, and I don't know if you've talked to anybody else about it, Chad, but I really think it needs to have a little thought, some thought process put into this, and I would just assume nothing happened tonight on this discussion, and if somebody wants to put it on the agenda and bring it back at our March meeting, Lord knows we have enough meetings in March, but if we want to discuss it at the March meeting, or if somebody wants to make a decision now and say that it goes to the second meeting in May, we have enough going on at our reorganizational meeting, the first meeting in May, if you wanted the second meeting in May, or what you'd like to do.
So we're gonna go back to one meeting a month then? Because I
don't.
had a half dozen people chew me out because we have to have 2 meetings a month when they think we can get this business done in one.
Greg, I'm going to say this, where's those half a dozen people that, how come they're not here complaining? What difference is it to them how often we meet?
I don't know, but that's what I got.
That's
chewed out about.
The salary is the same, whether you have one
Yeah.
meeting or two.
Yeah, that we didn't change the salary based on the 1 meeting or 2 meetings.
I think when it got changed, and that was the year where there was, I don't know, do you remember, I mean,
There was a
gajillion special meetings that year or something like that.
Yeah, we were getting $40.
Tracy, you were on there.
Yeah, there was a flood of meetings at that time.
I'll make it simple then, I don't think a decision should be made right now, okay? I just brought it up for discussion. So I would make the recommendation, we table it till a later time to discuss it and have further conversation. If we want to do it in March, or if it sounds to me like maybe we should wait till the new council is on, and then do it then, so I would make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Chad to discuss the council wages. Until the new council is seated,
Which is
seconded by
May
Brock.
12th meeting, May 12th.
May 12th, yeah. Any further discussion on this motion?
Did anybody second that?
Here, Hearing no discussion, roll call vote. John?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rock? Aye. Chad?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Motion's carried. All right, executive session for personnel, we don't need an executive session, I don't think? No? Okay. And I would entertain a motion to
I
adjourn.
would make a motion to adjourn, celebrate your birthday.
Second.
Who's that?
We paddle,
I-
second that motion. Like, even about the birthday.
Oh, okay. Meeting adjourned.
There's a cake,
Yeah.
and a big one.
Yeah, but on the
I didn't know.
Don't leave.